In Bolivia, victims of the de facto government's violent repression agreed to end a hunger strike to demand justice after a meeting with government officials. The presidents of South Africa and Senegal have slammed rich countries for their response to the Omicron variant of COVID-19 after it was identified by South African scientists. As part of the escalation of its attacks on China, the United States government announced a diplomatic boycott of the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. Hi, this is From the South. I am your news anchor, Diego Martin, in the TeleSUR studios in Havana. We begin with the news. We're going to begin in Bolivia, where relatives of victims and victims of the de facto government's violent repression agreed to end a hunger strike to demand justice after a meeting with government officials. 2 years after the Sankara and Sangaba massacres, victims of the violence unleashed as part of the group against Evo Morales voiced a series of demands, including calling on the authorities to initiate a census of victims. Protesters discussed a list of 13 points with the Minister of Justice, among other officials, on Monday, which included a comprehensive reparations plan, a trust fund, as well as a review of the criminal proceedings against those responsible for the massacres. Agreements were also reached on providing healthcare and educational and employment opportunities to those affected by the violence of the coup plotters and the de facto regime installed following the ousting of President Morales. In Peru, President Pedro Castillo was set to meet this Monday with political leaders of the country prior to the discussion in Congress of a motion for his impeachment. President Castillo plans to talk with leaders of the Free Peru and Popular Action parties and Together for Peru coalition. The far-right Popular Force Party of Keiko Fujimori announced that it will not attend the meeting with the president. This is the second attempt by right-wing parties to remove Castillo from office, with Congress set to vote on whether to start the formal impeachment process with only a simple majority needed to proceed.
Class, and I am being affected now by appliances. For example, because prices are high. Perhaps it is also because of the current pandemic situation. It is true. But it is also due to issues of mismanagement of the economy, of the deals to entrepreneurs. Investment is not encouraged.
All instability in the government somehow affects us, and even more so now with this vacancy. How many presidents have we had in recent times? Enough, don't you think? And now with this, it is like a pyramid that affects those above and then transmitted to others, companies, jobs, prices.
In Venezuela, it was formalized at the National Electoral Council the candidacy of Jorge Arreaza for the Barinas State Governorate. From the Barinas State Electoral Board, Jorge Arreaza concurred to register his candidature, accompanied by the authorities of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, supported by a multitude of supporters, consigned the collections required by the electoral law before the maximum committee body without objections. In this way, it formally began its participation in the contest by the Regency of the Barinas State that borders with Colombia.
Work with the people, listen to the people, and obey the people. We said it yesterday. The obedential government that Commander Chavez said is what we have to take forward. It is not the government of the office, the air conditioning, the armored vehicles, but the government of the assemblies, the government of house by house, the government of going to the factories, going to the fields, listening to the producers, listening to the peasants, listening to the women, the young people, the elders, and with them building the solution. It is not about bringing solutions, imparting solutions, but about building.
Meanwhile, the Democratic Alliance announced a postulation of Claudio Fermin as candidate to the electoral content for the governorate of Barinas State. The application has the support of the political organization Democratic Action. Fermin will replace former Governor Rafael Rosales Peña, who disputed for the governorship on November 21st. Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian hosted his Syrian counterpart Faisal Mikdad on Monday in Tehran. The two foreign ministers discussed the situation in Afghanistan, with the top Syrian diplomat voicing Damascus's support for Iran's position on the formation of a comprehensive national government that includes all Afghan groups, adding the United States has transferred hundreds of thousands of terrorists from Syria to Afghanistan. The two allies have worked to combat extremism in the region, with Iran providing support to Syria in its fight to rid its territory of Western-backed terrorists. Baghdad also met with President Ebrahim Raisi, who stressed the need to strengthen economic ties between the two nations. Baghdad's two-day journey to Tehran became a few days. The Iranian Minister of Industries, Mines and Trade took a 4-day trip to Syria.
Iran does not confirm any news about 90% enrichment. This is a lie. We were present at the negotiating table in good faith, but at the same time we will not follow Plan B. Iran is pursuing 20% enrichment within the framework of the NPT, as announced to the IAEA. We do not consider the interim agreement as a good one for our country. The agreement must be comprehensive. There must be an agreement so that Iran and the people can enjoy tangible economic benefits and the complete lifting of sanctions. Israel and those who support and defend it should not miscalculate, because Syria has always been and will remain capable of retaliating against Israeli violations. There are bilateral and multilateral meetings with Arab countries on many issues related to Syria. We are following up on that and are keen to strengthen and develop these talks with Arab countries. We are optimistic.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. The presidents of South Africa and Senegal have slammed rich countries for their response to the Omicron variant of COVID-19 after it was identified by South African scientists. During the opening of the 7th edition of the Dakar International Forum on Peace and Security in Africa, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa and Senegalese President Macky Sall warned that the response of rich countries to ban travel from southern African nations could serve to deter countries from being transparent about the emergence of new strains of the virus. President Ramaphosa also called on people to get vaccinated as his nation sees a surge in cases. So far, 14.8 million people have been fully vaccinated in South Africa, or around a quarter of the country's population. Seeking to overcome vaccine hesitancy, the authorities have opened up pop-up sites offering jabs at shopping malls, bus stations, airports, churches, and recreation centers.
Isolating a country that has detected a new variant and has been transparent is not only discriminatory, but also counterproductive, because it encourages others not to publish the actual results of their investigations. That is the danger. We must continue to work together in solidarity. This pandemic, which is affecting all our countries, must bring us together on the side of solidarity in our response, instead of adding a new divide between rich and poor countries.
Is that when South African scientists discovered, as President Macky Sall was saying, Omicron, the new variant, they immediately took on the responsibility of informing the world, the entire world, that a new variant has come through. And what is the result? The northern countries impose a ban to punish the excellence that comes from Africa. They basically say, we will not allow you to travel around. But lo and behold, Omicron is spreading all over the world.
Mayor of New York Bill de Blasio on Monday announced a blanket COVID-19 vaccine mandate for the private sector in the United States' biggest city. starting from late December. The order goes further than a nationwide mandate set by President Joe Biden for companies with more than 100 employees to vaccinate workers by January 4th. That has been stalled by court suspensions. Vaccine mandates have a long history in the U.S. but have generally been issued by cities or states. The mayor cited the emergence of the COVID-19 Omicron variant, cold winter weather, and holiday gatherings as additional challenges to tackling the pandemic in New York, which was hard hit by the virus in 2020 with at least 34,000 deaths. Omicron cases have been confirmed in at least 15 U.S. states so far, including several in
Look, this is how we put health and safety first, by ensuring that there is a vaccine mandate that reaches everyone universally in the private sector. A lot of folks in the private sector have said to me they believe in vaccination, but they're not quite sure how they can do it themselves. Well, we're going to do it. We're going to do this so that every employer is on a level playing field. One universal standard starting December 27th. Of the past, we cannot let those restrictions come back. We cannot have shutdowns here in New York City. We got to keep moving forward. And the answer, as always, is to use the things that work. Vaccination works, and vaccine mandates work. It is time.
Chile has begun vaccinating children aged 3 to 5 years against COVID-19 after having confirmed its first case of the Omicron variant over the weekend. The country is also moving ahead with inoculating adults with the third or booster dose, which has already been administered to 8.9 million people. Until now, children in the country have been vaccinated from the age of 6. Chile is among the countries in the world with the highest vaccination rate and has already immunized over 91% of the adult population. The outbreak has stabilized in the nation with about 2,000 new cases per day and about 20 deaths. Argentina confirmed its first case of the Omicron variant of coronavirus in a traveler from South Africa on Sunday. The health ministry informed that the 38-year-old patient has been in isolation since his arrival and underwent a PCR test before and after arriving in the country, which was negative in both cases.
The truth is that it worries me a lot because we have already experienced the issue of COVID, of being locked up and everything. And the truth is that this situation is very complicated. But let's hope that it won't be like the one that left, the variant.
It doesn't seem to have too much importance or danger, so the truth is that I'm not worried at all. Plus I'm vaccinated, and I've had both doses. A lot of times the media spreads fear too much, and that scares people. So it seems to me that first you have to base yourself on the scientific evidence, and then take the necessary precautions.
The global arms industry is flourishing despite COVID, as revealed in a report published on Monday. Sales of arms and military services by the industry's 100 largest companies totaled 470 billion euros in 2020, representing an increase of 1.3% in real terms compared with the previous year, according to new data released by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. This marked the 6th consecutive year of growth in arms sales by the top 100. Arms sales increased even as the global economy contracted by 3.1% during the first year of the pandemic. In much of the world, military spending grew and some governments even accelerated payments to the arms industry in order to mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 crisis. We have more news coming up after a final short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. As part of the escalation of its attacks on China, the United States government announced a diplomatic boycott of the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing. The White House said no official delegation would be sent to the Games, but U.S. athletes could attend and would have the government's full support. China earlier described the possibility of a boycott as grandstanding, noting that no U.S. officials have been invited to the Games, effectively making the boycott meaningless. Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian stressed that the Winter Olympic Games is not a stage for political posturing and manipulation, and warned that China will take resolute countermeasures. Responding to the U.S. announcement, China's Washington embassy said the boycott was a grave distortion of the spirit of the Olympic Charter.
The answer, as always, is to use the things that work. Vaccination works, and vaccine mandates work.
Without being invited, American politicians continue to hype the diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympic Games, which is just flattering themselves and trying to be sensationalistic. Political manipulation is a serious stain on the spirit of the Olympic Charter, a naked political provocation, and a serious offense to the 1.4 billion Chinese people.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi hosted Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday in their first in-person talks since 2019.
We perceive India as a great power, a friendly nation, and a time-tested friend. We also cooperate greatly in the military and technical sphere, like with no other country. Despite the challenges of COVID-19, India-Russia relationships have stayed unchanged. Our special and privileged strategic partnership with Russia has only been strengthened.
And on Monday, a Myanmar court found ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi guilty of charges including inciting public unrest and sentenced her to 4 years in prison. Monday's ruling is the first in a series of verdicts that could keep the 76-year-old Nobel laureate detained for the rest of her life. Later on Monday, state television announced that junta chief Min Aung Hlaing would reduce Suu Kyi's sentence by 2 years and keep her detained in her current undisclosed location rather than moving her to a prison. The reduction does not substantively change her fate, as she continues to face more serious charges with potential life sentences. Suu Kyi was ousted from power and detained by the military in February, sparking protests and international condemnation. The European Union has extended sanctions imposed on China for alleged human rights violations for 1 year, a measure condemned by Beijing. The sanctions, which will take effect from December 8th, include 4 entities and 14 individuals and are justified by the European bloc by alleged human rights violations in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region of the country. Chinese authorities rejected the extension sanctions and stressed that they are rooted in lies and misinformation, which respond to an agenda promoted by the United States government as part of its attacks on China and the One China principle. Sierra Leonean President Julius Maada Bio met with senior Chinese diplomat Yang Jiechi in Freetown Monday, with the two sides pledging to boost bilateral cooperation in various fields. Yang said the two leaders have held a phone conversation and exchanged messages of congratulations on the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and Sierra Leone, reaching important consensuses on consolidating mutual political trust and deepening cooperation in various fields. China is willing to work together with Sierra Leone to further deepen the coordination and cooperation in the United Nations and other multilateral institutions, safeguard the common interests of China and Africa and of other developing countries, and defend multilateralism and norms of international relations. Speaking at the opening of the two-day Dakar International Forum on Peace and Security on Monday, Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum urged his country's allies to step up the fight against arms trafficking from Libya, which he said is fueling insurgency in the Sahel region. The president warned that the terrorist groups currently operating in the Sahel have sophisticated weapons and ammunition in large quantities, which are acquired at very low cost through Libyan smuggling networks. Niger, along with Mali and Burkina Faso, is struggling with a devastating campaign by extremists that began in northern Mali in 2012. The bloodshed has claimed thousands of civilian and military lives, forced hundreds of thousands from their homes, and dealt crippling economic blows to countries that already ranked among the poorest in the world. The region's former colonial power, France, is leading European efforts to fight the jihadists, a presence rejected by much of the population in the affected nations, while the United Nations herself has a large peacekeeping force in Mali.
The partners' biggest failure has been their weak involvement in the fight against arms smuggling from Libya, which is the most important factor in the prevalence of this terrorism. They, the African states, also need, and this is important, better tailored help from their partners, based on intelligence, air support, and strengthening the capacities of their armed forces.
Are we leaving the Sahel? Absolutely not. The whole purpose of this transformation is to move toward more cooperation. Our goal is not to act in place of the Sahel states. Our goal is to act with them.
We've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at TeleSUR English. You can also follow us on social media for the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Dio Martin. Thanks for watching.